So yesterday we got the official announcement of the XRP ETF launch, and let's just be honest here, it was an incredible launch for XRP. But looking at the price chart, you would be saying, well, no, it really wasn't that successful, right? We have a lot to go over. I want to address a few things here because I feel like I just feel as if a lot of people in this space are not aware of how this market really moves. Everyone thinks that this market moves like stocks where, XRP should be moving off of good news and, solid reports on, returns and things like that. Because again, typically stocks are moving because a company is announcing a new partnership or, a new investment, or maybe even their, quarterly report came back in, a very positive way. That's not how crypto works. That's not how crypto moves. Crypto moves in the direction of Bitcoin, especially when the dominance is as high as it is. It does not mean that the ETF was a failure. It does not mean that XRP is, a scam or this or that. It's simply the fact that the market sucks right now. And I'm just going to, tell you guys it straight. This market sucks right now. This market has sucked for well over 10 months now. You might not think that because XRP, XRP is a little bit different, but XRP made a new high back in July. But if we're looking at this and comparing it to most other altcoins, let's just grab, I just want to grab, let's grab HBAR, right? HBAR for an example. I guess they only have wrapped HBAR. It doesn't really matter, right? The main thing that I'm focused on here is the fact that HBAR hasn't made a new high since going all the way back to January. Almost every single altcoin is in that same exact, status point where, they really haven't done much at all for well over 10 months now. So most of the market just sucks. And then also we have the market selling off in a big way, which we'll also address. But I do want to go over a few things. Let's first start off with the ETF because it was a very solid ETF. Right off the bat, right? This was Canary really kind of just announcing that they officially launched. This was at around roughly noon after we already saw how it was performing in the first hour. We have over here, I made a post saying this is absolutely insane. The first ever XRP spot ETF just did $26 million in volume in 30 minutes. And then, of course, Brad Garlinghouse said it's finally happening. He was quoting Eric Balchunas, which is the senior ETF analyst for Bloomberg. And we have XRPC at $26 million in volume in the first 30 minutes. Wow, gonna blow away my $17 million guess. Has a good shot at beating BSoul's $57 million as biggest day one of any launch this year. I did say 20 million, and hey, it blew right past my prediction on what our inflows were going to do, which is very good to see. But we have so many more ETFs waiting to launch this year as well. So we are watching that. In terms of the value right now from Canary, we do have the holdings here. This just got updated today. 108.7 million XRP, equivalent to over $250 million. This ETF has been on absolute fire. And the best part about this is most of the other issuers are like 10 times the size of Canary, which means if we are seeing this amount of inflows from a name like Canary Capital, imagine what Bitwise will see. Imagine what Franklin Templeton will see. And of course, at some point in time, we do expect the big boys to show up, aka BlackRock, Fidelity, and the other Wall Street giants. And if they are also going to launch an ETF around XRP, just imagine how much just think about how much money is going to flow into those ETF products. So that's what I'm really looking at here when it comes back to how successful this ETF was. Obviously, a lot of people would be saying that this was not really that successful. We'll address that. But to end off the day, it was about $58 million in day one volume. This did beat BSoul's $57 million. I think that the total amount was almost like $58.9 million. But we have congrats to XRPC for $58 million in day one volumes, the most of any ETF launched this year out of 900, barely edging out BSoul's $57 million. The two of them are in a league of their own, though, as third place is over $20 million away. But it just goes to show you how much demand there is for XRP. It also goes to show you how successful these products will be for XRP as well. There is so many eyes on XRP. I feel like so many people completely overlook this simply because of the price chart. I get it. The price chart sucks right now. I get it, right? The market sucks right now. But I want you guys to understand that the price action isn't the only thing that we need to be focused on here. We could also look at a few things and really come to the conclusion that, considering how successful this launch was, almost every single big player is looking at this and saying, all right, well, we should get an ETF as well for XRP. Because again, this shows us clear demand. And it also shows us how big XRP is compared to the, top two in terms of like Bitcoin and Ethereum for the ETFs. Now, outside of that, let's talk about a few things. Let's talk about why XRP really didn't go crazy, even though we got our first official 100% spot-based ETF. And it was a very successful one. I made a few jokes on X. Okay, I made this post yesterday. I said, and then we dumped Bitcoin the day of the XRP ETF approval to suppress the market even more. This post actually did pop off a little bit, so I do appreciate all the XRP holders that retweeted this and liked it as well. But it is a little bit of a meme. It's a little bit of a joke. However, there's definitely some truth tied back to it, because it feels as if every single time that XRP is doing very well, or we start to see XRP, have some sort of, success in the market, we start to see the market really just turn, upside down. And I find this very interesting. It kind of goes back to, I don't want to like just go complete tinfoil hat, but if we go all the way back here to 2020, we basically saw alt season start at the same exact time that XRP was delisted from every single major platform and the lawsuit officially got announced. It was right at the beginning of alt season. So I do find it very interesting on how these things are correlated a little bit. But the main reason why the altcoin, I just don't want to say like the altcoin market has been rough. But the main reason why altcoins haven't really, witnessed a crazy push to the upside and XRP hasn't been going crazy is simply because the altcoin market is getting beaten down by Bitcoin. Bitcoin is like the main thing holding everything down. The craziest part about this is, most of the market is down in a big way. Bitcoin's sub 100K. We saw the total market cap of crypto hit almost $2 trillion. Fear is about roughly 22 in terms of CMC. This is the entire crypto market in terms of fear. But looking at the Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index, this is at 16, extreme fear. On top of that, stocks also hitting extreme fear levels. So we now have extreme fear entering the market yet again. Most of the Fear and Greed Index charts are now back to their April lows. If you guys do know about the April low, that basically marked the local bottom. And then we saw the market go crazy a bit. But this is clearly showing us that the market is peak negative. Like, we are starting to see sentiment flip completely negative. So when we go back to the ETF talk and we address the ETF, discussions, was this a failure because XRP didn't pump? No. In fact, it was one of the most successful launches this year out of 900 launches. That's insane. I made a post about this because, again, I was seeing a lot of comments on the post behind like the 30-minute performance. And I said, people keep saying that the price of XRP is dumping even with the successful ETF launch. Number one, we recorded roughly over $40 million in inflows since launch. This is drops of water compared to the size of XRP's market cap. So we need a lot more inflows to affect the spot value. This is something that I feel like a lot of people kind of get confused with, right? Because they look at XRP and they're like, all right, well, we just saw $100 million in inflows. Let's just run a number out, right? $100 million in inflows. Look at the 24-hour volume on XRP right now. This is buying and selling volume. 8.29 billion. The price in the last 24 hours looks like this, with $8.29 billion in volume. Again, positive and negative. The market cap of XRP is almost $140 billion. I'm not saying that you need to have like a crazy amount of money into XRP to move it in terms of its market cap. I'm just saying that, $58 million and even this $250 million is not going to severely impact the price of XRP. Now, number two, the market is still chopping and Bitcoin is selling off, i.e. affecting the majority of the market. And yes, it is. Bitcoin hit a low today of 94.6K. Did we know that this was going to happen? I mean, listen, we charted it. I talked about it over the last couple of days. I said that Bitcoin has been teetering on the edge of losing one of the most significant uptrends on Bitcoin. If we don't soon see a major impulsive move here, it could cause Bitcoin to retest the deep 90K region, taking altcoins with it. This got posted at 12 p.m. yesterday. And since then, yeah, we have been selling off in a very, very large way. We lost 100K, and then that was kind of, the big signal that we're going to push to the downside. I would love for us to regain that trend line on the weekly. It's definitely still a possibility. We're just going to be watching this very, very closely. But beyond that, going back to number three, we don't see overnight price reactions to ETFs, regardless of how successful they are. Even Bitcoin sold off in January of 2024 with the launch of the ETFs before it finally moved to the upside. Yeah. Also, you got to remember, with ETFs, they don't purchase the shares until roughly the next day. Sometimes it's a little bit different with every single ETF, but for the most part, it's not an immediate OTC buy. I wouldn't be too quick to ridicule XRP here just because the market is still down. Many will underestimate how big a 100% spot-based ETF launch is, but this is a big moment. Institutional demand is now here and it's picking up quickly. Lock in. So yeah, to summarize this, is XRP's ETF a failure? Is XRP a failure? No. The ETF was one of the most successful launches in 2025 out of 900 ETF launches. On top of that, XRP, since going all the way back here to November of last year, is still up 365%. It did hit a high recently. We were up 643%. XRP is still doing very well, even with this market sell-off. Is this market sell-off concerning? Should we be concerned? Not exactly. Because again, we have witnessed these sell-offs before we have the next run-up. I'm not saying that this time is, the same. It could definitely be different. However, I wouldn't panic yet. But this was a very successful launch. I think that it's crucial to understand that. And I also think that's very important to understand that this market is not moving individually. Like, we're not seeing XRP move individually by itself with Bitcoin just kind of doing its own thing. No, Bitcoin is a major driver in this market. It's the number one reason why I keep saying to everyone, like, focus on Bitcoin dominance, right? Because, this thing has been hovering around like roughly 60%. I know that CMC is showing differently, but, we really haven't witnessed altcoins go crazy at all. I mean, if we think about it logically, right? Here we have back in January of 2021 when we started to see Bitcoin dominance really dropping. We witnessed others going absolutely crazy. We could see, how this, changed in the market. And that's where we started to see altcoins go crazy. So far, we really haven't witnessed altcoins gain significant dominance in this market at all. So until that happens, most altcoins are going to be pretty boring or flat or even negative. And that definitely does affect the spot value, no matter how great an ETF launch is. The good news is that this ETF launch gave us the data that we needed in order for the other institutional players and ETF issuers to say, all right, we need an XRP ETF. So I would ultimately guess that we will see more ETF applications for XRP ETFs because of just how successful this launch has been. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely leave a like, subscribe, turn notifications on because I'm more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, this is Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.